What's happening, everybody? And today I'm gonna do a review for Stone Temple Pilots. This is actually more or less a band review, and I'm also gonna take some time to go about an update on Stone Temple Pilots. This update has actually gone off for a while. It's not actually a most recent update, but it's kind of a shocker. So hopefully you guys stick around for all the things I have to say here. First of all, let me start off by saying Stone Temple Pilots is probably my favorite band, and I like probably around the revenue of probably about 30 to 40 songs from Stone Temple Pilots. I'd say I'm a fan, probably. So let me start off by talking about their very first album, the core album, which was released in 1992, and comes with 12 songs. Which technically it's 10, okay? It's technically 10 because 2 of the songs interlatch and connect to another song, so it's basically 10 songs that are kind of split, 2 of the songs are basically split into 2 parts, that being the No Memory and Sin. Those are basically a part 1 and a part 2 basically to each other, and you'll know what I mean if you actually listen to it. There's also a song called Wet My Bed and Cracker Man, and basically those 2 songs go together as a part 1 and a part 2, even though the Wet My Bed isn't really like a song. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but anyway. And a lot of long songs on this album, guys. There's a lot of 5-minute songs on here. The Dead and Bloated, the very first song on here, is like 5 minutes long. And the No Memory / Sin, which was the part 1 and part 2 song, ends up being like 7 minutes long. It's like, holy crap. The Creep, Piece of Pie, Plush end up being 5-minute songs, and Where the River Goes is the longest song they have on this album. It's 8 minutes and 25 seconds. This album was great. This is one of their best albums, I think, is the Core album. So I think I've said all I have to say about Core. I don't really have much to say. It was released in 1992. It was their first album, and yeah, I mean, pretty insane. This is definitely the grunge. This is definitely like the Alice in Chains and all that stuff back in the day. Next album, Purple, released in 1994. I love this album. There's also 12 songs on this disc, with technically there's 11 songs actually. It's kind of confusing actually. Technically there is 12 songs on this disc, but there's only 11 tracks. It's kind of weird. The 11th track is actually is an 8-minute song. The 11th track, which is called Kitchenware and Candy Bars. And after 4 minutes of the Kitchenware and Candy Bar song is done, there's about a 30-second gap, and then all of a sudden there's just this random song that comes along. And it's kind of funny, and it's really funny actually. And it's the last song is called like 12 Gracious Melodies, and it's kind of a cute parody random thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of weird, kind of cool, kind of like you really want to jive to it. Actually, it's pretty funny. I'd say most of the initial songs on here are, I mean, they're not really like within the 5-minute range. I mean, there's like one song that's like 5 minutes long, and I mean, yeah, I mean, they're shorter. The Loungefly song is in the 5-minute range. The Silver Gun Superman is in the 5-minute range, and the rest of the songs are less than that, except for the exception of the Kitchenware and Candy Bars, which is an 8-minute song, 8 minutes and 6 seconds or something like that. This is overall a great album just as much. For some reason, when I listened to this album, the 1994 album, it took me a little bit of getting used to like some of the songs on it. I don't know why. But I ended up liking pretty much all the songs, so I don't know why. Like the Vaseline song and like the Silver Gun Superman and the Army Ants song. I mean, that took me some getting used to like those songs, but they ended up being a great album, just like the Core album. So, okay. Now we're going on to the third album, the Tiny Music from the Tiny Music Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. This was their third album they released in 1996. this album was a real turn, I would have to say, for Stone Temple Pilots. A lot of people thought that Stone Temple Pilots really made their turn as far as doing a lot of different stuff when they went to their number 4 album. I kind of disagree. I think this album was a real switch up for them as far as doing some really different kind of music. So I think that's kind of false with the number 4. Although the number 4 did kind of do some interesting stuff too. If you listen to the Core & Purple and then you listen to this album, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's like, when you listen to this album at first, you're just kind of like, what happened? Like, really, what happened? And it's like they're just so different, and the way the instrumentation and all that. Well, I mean, even the Purple was different on the instrumentation, and even the singing was kind of different too. So Stone Temple Pilots just kind of changed with every album. It seems like they came with a different change. And the change is good, but you have to adjust to it, because it may not be the Stone Temple Pilots that you're used to. I thought this was a good album. I just didn't think it was as great as the Core & Purple. Just my opinion, okay? So yeah. Moving on to the number 4 album, which they released in 1999. And I forgot to mention that the Tiny Music from the Vatican Shop had 12 songs, but technically speaking it was 10. Just like the Core album. It was technically 10, but they had 12 on there, so yeah. And moving on to their number 4 album, though, which was released in 1999, there are 11 songs on here. There are no 2-part songs. They only have 2 songs on here that exceed the 5-minute range, which is The Glide and Atlanta. On their last album that I showed you, the Tiny Music from the Vatican Shop, they did have, they had one song, I think, that exceeded the 5-minute range, the Adhesive song. And yeah, I think that was the only song they had on there that exceeded 5 minutes. The Tiny Music from the Vatican was probably one of the shortest albums as far as like how short the songs were. So yeah, this album to me I think was a real advancement for Stone Temple Pilots from their number 3 album, which was the Tiny Music. This number 4 album, I consider it to be quite a bit better than the number 3 album. I consider the number 3 album to be weak compared to this album and Core & Purple for that matter. But this was a great album. Definitely, I liked this album. I really enjoyed this album. Even one of the songs on here sounded like Soundgarden. Sounded like the guy from Soundgarden. And I mean, it was just, it's a really cool album. So yeah. Okay, now I was gonna initially bring up, let me talk about the number 5 album. Okay, there was another album released in 2001 by Stone Temple Pilots called the Shangri-La Dita album. This was their 5th album they released in 2001, and it was one of their last albums they did before Scott Weiland split off and went to Velvet Revolver. But let me tell you something about this Shangri-La Dita album, which was their 5th album that they released. I'm going to be honest with you. I've taken a lot of poops in my time. I've taken a lot of dumps. I mean, I've been on the toilet for... there's been times I've been stuck on the toilet for 20, 30 minutes. I've been stuck on the toilet. And sometimes I had a, really big turd coming out of my ass, and I couldn't believe it came out of my own ass because of how huge it was. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have never heard such terrible music. I mean, it's just like, the 5th album was terrible, guys. I mean, it was just like, that's the only reason I don't have it. That's the only reason I don't have it with me right now. It was so terrible. And, I mean, it was a bad album. It was a really bad album. I really thought it was the worst album. And that's coming from somebody like me who's a Stone Temple Pilots fan. Literally, I think, some of the times that I've really been stuck on the toilet, I'm going to be honest, it looked better than most of that album altogether. Even the cover of it, for that matter. I think there was only about 2 songs on there that I thought were plausibly good, while the rest of them were okay? So that's all I gotta say about the number 5 album. I really don't want to speak anymore about the number 5 album. I don't believe it's worth mentioning. If you thought the Tiny Music from the Vatican Shop was a bad album out of Stone Temple Pilots, the Shangri-La Dita is even worse. Okay, it's the worst album imaginable. And it's a terrible album. Only 2 songs I liked on there were Days of the Week and Wonderful. And the rest of them, that's it. Okay? moving on. They released another album, their number 6 album. Now, before I get to this number 6 album, let me mention one other thing. Because I have got to mention this first before I talk about the number 6. In 2001, after they did their Shangri-La Poo Poo album, which I considered crap, they basically Scott Weiland was going to be going to Velvet Revolver. And so in 2003, they released, let me see here. In 2003, they released the Thank You album. I did a review on this, so check out the other video if you want to know about the Thank You album. In 2003, they released the Thank You album just to say to their fans that Stone Temple Pilots was done after they got done with the Shangri-La Poo Poo album. And then they did that album. Then they were going to say goodbye, and Scott Weiland was going to go off to Velvet Revolver. No problem. Okay. 2003, he goes to Velvet Revolver, and all of a sudden he finds himself crawling right back to Stone Temple Pilots. And then in 2010, they come out with this album, their number 6. And I want to just briefly talk about this album as much. There's no one song on here. I don't think there is a song on here that exceeds, yeah, I don't know. I think there's only like one song on here that's like 5 minutes long, and there's like one song that comes close to being 5 minutes. I don't know why I'm so fed up, or I don't know why I'm talking about these songs having to be over 5 minutes long in order to be good. I mean, they had great songs that were short too. But anyway, getting back to the number 6, I really like this number 6 album, guys. I liked this album pretty good. I would say I feel about, it was about the same for me as like number 4. And yeah, I mean, it was a really, really good album. And the Shangri-La Dita is the only one I wouldn't recommend getting. All these other albums I mentioned to you, get these albums. This is the good Stone Temple Pilots, and if you listen to these discs all the way through, you're gonna like, you know, you gotta like some of these songs, man. I mean, they're just amazing. They're beautiful. Some of them are like beautiful songs. Some of them are like, you know, basically they just want to tear things apart, and they really were varied. And one of the great things about Scott Weiland is he was able to do so many different vocal styles. And at times he sounded like he was from Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and I guess apparently he sounded like Pearl Jam, and I haven't listened to that much Pearl Jam, so I can't really say. I mean, I've listened to Pearl Jam, but I mean, I just haven't listened to all of Pearl Jam like I have of Stone Temple Pilots. But so far, I think I like Stone Temple Pilots better than Pearl Jam from what I've heard from Pearl Jam. So that's just my opinion. But anyway, now that I've kind of done basically essentially a band review of Stone Temple Pilots, there is a shocking update to this whole thing. Now, this update came from Stone Temple Pilots, I believe it was last month in February. There was an update that Scott Weiland was fired from Stone Temple Pilots. And this is absolutely disappointing to somebody like me. I mean, it's just disappointing. For some reason, I had this idea that I thought they were going to release another album this year in 2013. I don't know why. I just felt like another album was going to be released, and instead, it's like they're split up again. It kind of ticks me off. I was hoping for another album because I really dig this band. I mean, this is really, like I said, it's my favorite band, and I really just am a little bit ticked off about this all of a sudden, just this thing with Scott Weiland. And I kind of understand it because, first of all, Scott Weiland was a heroin addict, and he did cocaine, and he did, you know, alcohol and stuff. And he got off the heroin, he got off the cocaine, and he pretty much just was a drinker. And basically, I can only see one of two things happen in this scenario. Either Scott was too sober and he wasn't drunk, and the band got mad at him because he wasn't drunk enough, or they got mad at him because he was being too drunk or something. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. It really ticks me off that that, Stone Temple Pilots is just kind of all messed up again. And Scott Weiland, I guess he didn't even know that he got fired from the damn band, because he was saying to everybody that, he was saying that they were trying to do it to boost sales. That's what he said. He said they were trying to do it to boost sales. And I don't know if I really buy that. I mean, who would admit to something like that? I mean, who would say, oh, we did it so we could boost sales? And then it was like he was saying that he was going to take legal action because, they're not supposed to, there's some kind of a clause or something in the contract that says he can't be removed because, or, it can't be removed unless he wants to remove himself from it. Which I guess when he went to Velvet Revolver, I guess he said, okay, it's okay, you guys can get somebody else. With his permission, he left Stone Temple Pilots and said you can find somebody else, but apparently he's not allowed to, just be fired from Stone Temple Pilots unless he permits it. It's kind of, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Scott Weiland says, and it's kind of hard to say with that guy because who's to say that the guy's on all cylinders? I'm not saying the guy is completely stupid. I just, I kind of am upset about this split up because, like I said, I was hoping for maybe another album. And I don't know how this is going to pan out, and I don't know if he's going to go back to Velvet Revolver, and I really don't want him to. Because he has so much more potential with Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, not that he was terrible in Velvet Revolver. I mean, if anything, Velvet Revolver just showed how much more differently he could go with his vocal style. Because if you see all of his Stone Temple Pilots song and then see what he does in Velvet Revolver, you see just a whole different vocal style. And the other thing I want to mention briefly right now is that the thing about Scott Weiland is he did some solo tours and stuff, and he did some, solo albums. He did like Christmas songs and stuff. It was crappy, okay? I mean, he only belongs Stone Temple Pilots only. Okay, he doesn't belong making Christmas carols and stuff like that. It's not his thing. It's not his thing. If you listen to it, it's like, no. Stone Temple Pilots is the only thing he should be doing. He could plausibly do Velvet Revolver, but everybody would probably want to see him do Stone Temple Pilots rather than Velvet Revolver. The strong majority who like Scott like him for Stone Temple Pilots. There's probably a few random weirdos out there that think Velvet Revolver is just the most amazing thing in the whole world. Just like there was a few random people out there that thought Angels and Airwaves was so much better than Blink-182. Even though everybody knows that in some ways Blink-182 was kind of where the guy belonged. He belonged to Blink-182, not Angels and Airwaves. But I'm sorry for bringing up Blink-182 because it's kind of random, but anyway. I mean, I like Blink-182. I like Blink-182, but we're talking about Stone Temple Pilots, so I'm sorry about that. So anyway, I hope they get back together eventually. I hope this doesn't turn into something that turns into years. And I hope he doesn't die of like some kind of an overdose and they can't make any more music, because everybody wants to hear this guy do some more stuff. I mean, if you look at these albums that I just showed you, he did so many different things. I mean, he went from grunge to hard rock to soft rock to pop rock, and you know, he just did so many different things. And well, the Christmas carols, like I said, don't bother with that because it's crap. And don't bother, I mean, you can go to Velvet Revolver and listen to a few songs like Fall to Pieces. I mean, that was a really good song by Velvet Revolver, Fall to Pieces. But, I mean, realistically, Stone Temple Pilots is his baby, and he needs to get back to that. And the band needs to try to, you know, maybe be a little bit more reasonable and say, hey, you know, without this guy, Stone Temple Pilots is not possible. They already did this route before. When Scott Weiland went to Velvet Revolver, they got some other guy to take over for Stone Temple Pilots, and the guy was not legit. He was having all kinds of problems or something, whoever they got as a replacement. And they need Scott, you know. And I thought it was funny how Scott didn't know, you know, that he got fired from Stone Temple Pilots. It was almost like, you know, from the movie Euro Trip, you know, Scotty doesn't know. Oh, Scotty doesn't know. Oh, I just thought about that song for some reason, but yeah. Scotty doesn't know. Scotty doesn't know. But anyway, that's the end of this discussion. I just wanted to do kind of a band review and just a little update right there. I'm really ticked off about this, so please, Scott Weiland and Robert DeLeo, whatever your last name is, and Dean DeLeo, because you guys are like brothers. Robert and Dean, you guys are brothers. I don't know how to pronounce your guys' freaking last name. I think it's DeLeo. And then the Eric Kretz guy, the drummer guy, you got to do some here, buddy. You have got. I mean, I know you're just a drummer, but you got to do some. You got to do something with Scott. And Scott, man, you need to wise up and stop being a drinker, because that's probably why you got kicked in the first place, because you were drinking. But anyway, you guys all need to get yourselves together and be a band. Bring out another 3 albums, because, man, knowing the way these people are, the way these rock artists and everything, he's probably going to die of an overdose or something, and then we're not going to be able to hear any more songs from the guy. And then what we have is what music lives on. I mean, let's not have a Kurt Cobain or a Lane Staley situation on our hands here. I mean, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, how he died, you know, Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, can't get any more of them. Let's suck as much as we can get out of Scott Weiland before he dies. I'm serious. And I know that sounded wrong that I said that suck as much as possible. But seriously, we got to get as much as we can get out of this guy, because this guy's amazing. He's like one of the best vocalists, man. He's insane. Okay, so anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoy all that I had to say, talking about all the albums and talking about the update and how they have got to get back together. End of story. They have got to get back together.